Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into a political saga that's really captured a lot of attention. The pretty remarkable and surprisingly bitter journey of the relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
It's fascinating, isn't it? What started as this, well, unexpected alliance has morphed into a very, very public feud.
Exactly. And we're going to try and unpack all the different layers behind this clash of titans, really.
Right. And our mission here for this deep dive is to go a bit beyond just the headlines. We want to really get at the dynamics at play. So using the sources you've shared, we'll trace the timeline, sure, but also look at the fundamental nature of their power. What can they actually do? What are their limits?
And hopefully help you, the listener, figure out where influence really sits in modern American politics today.
Yeah, exactly. We've dug up some, well, unexpected details and key insights from the material that we think are worth exploring.
Okay, let's get into it. And we should probably start at the beginning, which honestly might surprise some people listening.
It often does.
It's not something that gets talked about constantly, but back in 2024, Elon Musk actually put, what was it, nearly $288 million into the pro-Trump America PAC.
That's a huge amount of money. And a PAC, just for clarity, a political action committee, it's basically a tool, a vehicle for funneling pretty significant campaign money.
Right, it lets individuals, groups, really throw weight behind candidates, influence elections in a big way.
And it wasn't just money. Musk also had a role, didn't he, in Trump's DOGE initiative?
Yeah, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, which, I mean, the name itself.
Had that very distinct meme-like quality to it, yeah.
It really just shows how, well, kind of unexpected that early alignment was.
But what's maybe even more striking is just how quickly it all fell apart.
Yeah, the breakdown. What was the trigger?
Well, the sources point to one specific thing, Trump's really strong support for a massive spending and tax bill. It even got nicknamed One Big Beautiful Bill.
Right, I remember that.
And Musk's reaction, it was immediate and pretty fierce. He publicly called it reckless.
Didn't he go further? Like declaring war?
He did. In no uncertain terms, he declared war on anyone backing that bill, a very public break.
And Trump, well, he doesn't usually take things lying down. His response was just as quick.
And very public, too. The sources say he called Musk's actions ridiculous.
Yeah, and didn't he threaten subsidies? Or even suggest deportation? That seems pretty extreme.
It was quite dramatic, yes. Floating those kinds of threats, revoking subsidies, deportation hints, it definitely raised the temperature.
So Musk gets back again.
He does. His counter move was, again, pretty bold.
Yeah.
He announced this plan to create a whole new political party, a centrist one.
The America Party.
That's the one. And it was specifically designed, quite pointedly, to challenge the Republican lawmakers who had actually voted for that spending bill Trump liked.
So, a direct shot. A political challenge aimed right at Trump supporters in Congress.
Absolutely. It signaled a complete and total break, no ambiguity there.
So yeah, we witnessed this really dramatic, very public shift. Allies 1 minute, practically adversaries the next, all playing out openly.
And this rapid unraveling, I think, is what got a lot of people asking that next big question.
Which is, can Elon Musk actually become president of the United States? This part often surprises people, and it's really key to understanding the limits here.
It is.
Based on the sources, the short answer is just no. Flat out no. Not under the laws we have now.
That's right. And the reason lies directly in the Constitution. It's quite clear.
Musk is a naturalized citizen, right?
Yeah.
Became a citizen in 2002, but born in South Africa.
Correct. Born in South Africa, became a U.S. citizen later. And the Constitution, as many of you will know, has that specific requirement for the president.
The natural-born citizen clause.
Exactly. A standard that Musk, being a naturalized citizen, just doesn't meet. It's a hard line.
So is there any way around that? Like, could the law be changed?
Theoretically, yes. The only way would be a constitutional amendment. But the sources we looked at are very direct about this. They call it an extremely difficult and unlikely path. Amending the Constitution is intentionally hard to do.
Right. Needs huge support, multiple steps, not something done lightly or often.
Precisely. So the key takeaway here is pretty straightforward. Elon Musk can definitely spend money. He can influence campaigns. He can shape debate.
Massively.
Massively. But under the current legal framework, he cannot actually be a presidential candidate. Full stop.
And that hard limit, that legal wall, it really brings us to thinking about the different kinds of power we're seeing clash here. Musk versus Trump,
Yeah, what are we actually comparing?
That's such a fascinating distinction to draw out. So what does this
Yes.
all mean for how we understand political power today? Let's dive into comparing those distinct types of influence and authority.
Okay. And the material lays out a pretty clear distinction, which is helpful. On one side, you've got Elon Musk.
Right.
He has basically zero formal power in government. He doesn't hold any elected office.
So how does he exert influence?
Primarily through, well, his enormous personal wealth, obviously, his huge platform on social media, X especially, and funding these PACs directly.
And who's he reaching?
His reach seems to extend to sort of tech-focused audiences, big donors, and potentially those, centrist voters maybe feeling alienated by both parties.
And his strategy seems to be these PACs, this idea of the America Party maybe backing independent candidates.
Exactly. That seems to be the playbook. But again, critically, he's bound by laws, like that natural-born citizen clause we just discussed.
So it's influence, but not authority. The sources call it soft power, right?
That's the term they use, yeah. Substantial soft power. Shaping narratives, funding campaigns, persuading, attracting, but not commanding.
Okay, so contrast that with Donald Trump.
Right. Very different picture. Trump holds, or has held, formal power as a former president and a potential candidate again in 2028.
And his methods.
Its influence methods are things like those big rallies, direct connection with his base, and when in office, the power of executive authority, signing orders, directing agencies.
His reach is different too, more the populist base, the established Republican Party networks.
Definitely. And his campaign strategy typically involves traditional party-backed campaigns. Crucially, he wields formal authority, or the potential for it.
That is a really sharp distinction. So Musk has the influence, maybe the narrative control online, but lacks the legal authority. Trump has the institutional machinery, the potential for direct governing power, plus his own direct voter connection.
It's a core difference. Musk can persuade, maybe provoke, but Trump can potentially command and execute policy directly through the state's apparatus.
But how much does Musk's personal brand, which is, it's undeniably strong on platforms like X, how much does that blur the line? Especially since Trump also uses social media so effectively to bypass traditional channels.
That's a really good point, because both are masters of using their platforms for direct communication. But the fundamental difference maybe lies in the endpoint, the enforcement. Musk can tweet policy ideas. Trump could potentially sign them into law or issue executive orders. That's the gap.
Okay, so if we take a step back, connect this feud to the bigger picture, what are the main lessons we can pull from this about how power works now?
Yeah, this whole high-profile clash, it really does offer some, I think, vital lessons about power dynamics in politics today. It goes beyond just these two individuals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And maybe the first lesson is the most fundamental one. Money can't buy everything. Specifically, wealth can't just erase a constitutional requirement.
Right. Musk's billions buy incredible influence. We see that with the PAYX, but they don't buy him eligibility for the presidency.
It's a hard limit.
Yeah.
Shows the enduring power of those foundational rules, even against massive wealth.
And the second lesson, kind of building on that, is about these tech billionaires as power brokers.
The modern plutocracy idea.
Exactly. Musk is maybe the prime example discussed in the sources. He's not just lobbying in the old way, he's trying to actively reshape the whole political field, founding parties, using X as a political tool, pouring his personal fortune in directly.
It feels like a new kind of intervention, not just influencing elections, but trying to set the terms of the debate, maybe even bypass the traditional parties.
It's definitely a different scale and method of private power trying to steer political outcomes from outside the formal electoral system.
So what else?
Well, a third lesson seems to be about new political norms, or maybe dissatisfaction with the old ones.
That's the America Party idea.
Yeah, that proposal, even if it doesn't go anywhere, reflects this growing dissatisfaction with the two-party system. And the sources mention a poll figure, right? 58% of Americans supporting a third party.
That's a majority. Right.
But, and this is important, history tells us these third-party efforts in the U.S. usually face huge uphill battles. They tend to struggle to gain real traction, often fizzling out. It's a tough system for outsiders to break into.
Okay, and you mentioned a fourth lesson earlier about brand versus authority.
Yes. Personal brand versus institutional authority. It comes back to that core difference. Musk has a huge personal brand. He can shape narratives, influence millions online.
But he can't actually enforce anything. He can't make policy stick just by saying it.
Exactly. Whereas Trump drawing on his past or potential future office, can mobilize actual institutions, his party, potentially government agencies. It shows that gap between, let's say, narrative control, influencing what people think, and actual governing power, the ability to make and enforce rules.
So let's try and bring this all together then. The main takeaway seems to be Elon Musk might just be the most powerful private influencer in American politics right now.
Quite possibly. Bankrolling candidates, starting pay, sparking legislative debates with a tweet. The influence is undeniable.
And it's a huge, but he cannot legally become president. That door is closed.
Right. And that stands in really stark contrast to someone like Donald Trump, who has wielded and could potentially wield again both electoral power and formal institutional authority.
So their clash, it really throws a spotlight on this shifting dynamic, doesn't it? It's like the rise of this immense wealth-driven private influence hitting up against the
inertia of constitutional power, the established rules of the game.
Yeah, something like that. The old structures versus the new money and tech influence.
It's a fascinating tension to watch unfold.
It really is. Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. As information, and maybe influence too, becomes more and more diffused, spread across social media, different platforms, influencers. How do you think this balance of power between these incredibly wealthy private figures and the traditional elected institutional authorities, how will that continue to evolve in the coming years?
That's the big question, isn't it? Where does that balance settle?